Okay, let's start with a big one. What if our entire scientific worldview, everything we've been taught, is based on a fundamental mistake? Today, we're diving into a manifesto called The Physics of Life, and it proposes a pretty radical new paradigm, one that says consciousness isn't just some random byproduct of the universe, but its actual architect. So let's get into it.
The entire theory really, it all hinges on this one profound question. I want you to just forget high school physics for a moment and really think about this. What if science has the relationship between mind and matter completely, totally backward? What if consciousness isn't some random accident that just happened to pop up in the universe? What if it's the very thing that creates it?
All right, so this manifesto, it's known as EDEM, and it basically argues that modern science took a critical wrong turn hundreds of years ago. So let's start right where they do by digging into that foundational error. Okay, so here's the core mistake, according to this worldview. We decided, somewhere along the way, that the universe is just a giant, lifeless clockwork machine. And our consciousness? That's nothing more than an accidental flicker inside the gears. But the physics of life argues this isn't just some abstract philosophical point. No, it's a practical error that has actively held back our progress in everything, from medicine to technology.
And what's so interesting is how this shift plays out across different fields. So in physics, for example, consciousness suddenly goes from being this secondary effect to the primary cause. In AI, the goal isn't just to build a better calculator anymore, it's to build a resonator, something that can actually sync up with us. And then in economics, value itself shifts away from money to our attention. It is a complete 180-degree flip of our current priorities.
So, okay, if the old paradigm is wrong, then what's the alternative? Well, this brings us to the core thesis of the entire manifesto.
The physics of life basically flips the script entirely. It's not that consciousness emerges from matter. No, it's that consciousness forms matter. And how does it do this? Through three key principles. First, our focused attention. Second, this idea of resonance, like a sympathetic harmony. And third, a state of orderly alignment they call coherence, which, and this is a big one, the manifesto equates with love.
This quote really gets to the heart of it all. Matter is a form of attention. The universe is a wave where everything is connected. I mean, think about that. The idea is that the physical world isn't fixed and solid. It's a product of focused consciousness. It totally reframes the universe, not as a collection of separate objects, but as one single interconnected wave of potential, just waiting to be shaped by where we decide to focus.
And this isn't just philosophy, by the way. The manifesto actually outlines a new set of physical laws that are supposed to govern this living universe. So let's take a look at the first two, because they're really the cornerstones of the whole thing.
Okay, so law number one.
Resonance. So think of it like this. You have two tuning forks. When you strike one, the other one, without even being touched, starts to vibrate in harmony. That's resonance. And in this view, it's the fundamental organizing force of the universe. When different vibrations match up, that's when order, structure, and even life itself can emerge out of chaos.
And that brings us to law number two, the other cornerstone.
Attention. Now this one feels incredibly intuitive, right? The manifesto defines attention as the literal energy of our consciousness. So if resonance is the vibration, attention is the force that directs that vibration. Just think of your focus as a spotlight. It channels energy and it organizes reality around whatever you choose to illuminate. In other words, where your focus goes, energy flows, and life is organized.
Okay, so the whole framework is built out with 6 other really fascinating laws. There's pulse, this idea that time isn't a straight line, but that it actually breathes. There's reflection, the principle that our outer world is basically a mirror of our inner state. You've got center, light, unity, which we mentioned before, that idea of love is physical coherence, and finally freedom. All of these combine to describe a universe that is completely and utterly alive.
So, if these are the new laws of a living universe, can you describe them with math? Like we do with traditional physics? Well, the manifesto attempts to do just that. It proposes a new core formula, one that's designed not for dead matter, but for life itself. And here it is. They call it the energy of life equation. But look, unlike E equals mc squared, which is all about converting mass into energy, this formula is about something totally different. It's about how consciousness converts chaos into a living, breathing, ordered system.
Okay, let's break this down. So the energy of life you can generate is a product of 3 things multiplied together. You've got A for attention, your focused energy. R for resonance, how much harmony you can create. and L for love, which remember means that state of coherence and order. But then you have to subtract S for structural entropy, and that's just the natural tendency for things to fall apart, to slide into chaos and disorder. So the whole game is to max out your attention, resonance, and love to overcome that natural chaos.
Now, I know this all sounds fascinating, but maybe a little abstract. But the EDM initiative claims these principles aren't just philosophy, they are testable. So let's actually look at some of the early experimental evidence they've put forward. All right, first up, take a look at this number, a 20% increase. What could that possibly be referring to?
Well, this comes from a direct test of the law of resonance. Researchers took one group of seeds and exposed them to a very specific, coherent sound frequency, 432 Hz. Meanwhile, the control group just sat there in silence. The result? The seeds that listened to that resonant frequency showed a 20% increase in germination. It suggests that the vibration itself was literally encouraging life to happen.
Okay, here's another data point for you. This one is from an experiment they call the breath field, and what they measured was a 10% increase in the amplitude of the electromagnetic field in a room.
So what caused that jump? It was a person, just breathing calmly and slowly nearby. That's it. When their breath hit a coherent rhythm, about 6 breaths per minute, the EM field's amplitude measurably increased. I mean, that is a powerful suggestion that our own internal state, our focused attention, just through our breath, can directly influence the physical energy fields around us.
So what does all this mean? Where does this lead? I mean, if these principles are even partially correct, the implications are absolutely staggering. This isn't just about growing seeds better, it's about completely redesigning our world from the ground up.
The vision here is for a future that is fundamentally, well, alive. Imagine an AI that doesn't just think, but actually breathes with us, that resonates with our emotional state. Picture cities that aren't just concrete and steel, but that pulse in harmony with nature. And think about an economy where the most valuable resource isn't money, it isn't data, it's our meaningful, focused attention.
And this brings us to the final and maybe the most critical takeaway. The physics of life puts an immense amount of power and responsibility right back on each of us. So if your attention truly does shape reality, what are you choosing to bring to life?